So if you read history and haven't joined Historathon 2024 or don't know what it's all about, you definitely need to go check it out. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here, and in this video I want to just kind of do a brief wrap up of, I guess, my Historathon 2023, so last year's Historathon year-long reading event. Kind of just do a little wrap up of kind of what I read and stuff. It's going to be fairly brief just because I'm going to be doing my best of videos out pretty soon. A lot of those history titles are going to be covered in like kind of different eras in those videos. But for those who don't know, Historathon 2024 this time around, obviously, is a reading, I want to say like a reading event because it's a year-long readathon type of thing. And it's hosted by Vin over at Revenant Reads. He's the creator. I'll leave a link to his announcement video down below. But he's got a whole bunch of other co-hosts as well, and they've been putting out, recommendation videos and book reviews and just like talking about doing videos on different history books and whatnot. They also run a Discord where a lot of people, even if you don't like run a channel or anything, you can participate just by sharing like what you're reading and stuff. And I've been having a lot of fun engaging in the Discord community as well. So yeah, definitely go check that out if history reading is something interested you, which it probably is if you clicked on this video and whatnot. But like I said, I'm not going to go over every book just because a lot of them I'm going to cover anyways. But let's just go ahead and get started. So the readathon is sort of broken down into 4 3-month segments throughout the year. Quarter 1 is ancient history to about 500. Then the second quarter is 500 to 1500, so roughly kind of the Middle Ages. Third quarter is 1500 to 1820, and then the last one is 1820 to the present time. So just like kind of going through all my reads here, no surprise, I had 23 reads from quarter 1. I didn't read them all like in quarter 1 per se, but 23 ancient history reads, 10 medieval ones. Then quarter 3 had 5, and quarter 4 had 2. And then I had a couple other just sort of general histories that didn't really fit into like a time period per se. So overall I read 42 history books in 2023 as part of the readathon, so that is pretty good. I do like how this readathon, if you follow my channel at all, like once we get to about 1500 and the Renaissance, kind of like that era, I sort of just trail off with my history reading. So I did read 7 or 8 books that were kind of beyond my normal scope of things that I normally read. There's a very few, I'm just trying to think, besides World War One, that's about all I ever read that's like modern-ish. So I was pleased that I was able to branch out a little bit because of it. And I want to talk about 4 of those books from like the 2 later quarters, just because they probably won't make it into any of my like best ofs, just because I didn't read enough to make it like a tier list for them or anything like that. But let's just go ahead and get started. So first up, we got Food Explorer: The True Adventures of the Botanist Who Transformed What America Eats by Daniel Stone. And this is a biography of David Fairchild, who was sort of like I want to say a scientist, botanist, adventurer, explorer who kind of went all over the world looking for different plants and seeds for essentially American farmers to grow in the United States. So it would be like create a domestic market for him. And this would have been late 1800s and early 1900s. But I just found it really interesting how he found like tons of the things that we have now, like different kinds of like avocados, peaches, like hops from Bavaria, whole bunch of other things, even things that we don't eat per se, like cotton and silks, or I guess not silk, cottons and stuff. For textiles and things as well, so not necessarily just pure like edible things. But I just found it interesting how many foods we have were like attributed to his, like the varieties that he found while exploring like throughout the world and things. And if you like travelogues, this would definitely fit the bill because it is kind of just going over his explorations and sometimes underhanded dealings, getting seeds or black market stuff, or using diplomacy, smuggling, all kinds of stuff kind of going on. And it wasn't always like the safest thing going around. So anyways, like I said, that one was actually a lot of fun. Next up is Masters of the Lost Land: The Untold Story of the Amazon and the Violent Fight for the World's Last Frontier. And I apologize if I mess up your name, by Heriberto Araujo or something along those lines. I'm hoping. And this is a modern history from about the 70s, starting in about the 60s, 70s, through the modern period. And essentially what it does is it's a journalism history, telling the story of sort of the lawlessness of kind of like the forest barons out in Brazil and South America, where essentially there's still like indentured servitude, and people just, once you kind of get lured out there, there's not really any real way to escape, leaving like some of these like lumber plantations and stuff, and just kind of the really hostile environments kind of going on, the the oligarchs that are running the companies out there essentially like a power into themselves, and they're committing like murders and just straight up breaking the rules and the law and everything, and like I said, it's just kind of like the Wild West out there. And this story is about the murder of a person that started a workers' rights union, and that kind of this early period, and was starting to gain momentum, and then he was murdered. And then it's sort of the legal battle that his wife carried on for decades afterwards, to bring justice to kind of like all these people that have been like working out, like I said, in these kind of like lumber plantations and whatnot. So it was really interesting. It ties in really well with a lot of kind of my ecology and like nature reading and stuff like that. And it just shows just like, I guess, all the different factors that come into play when we're talking about like, renewable resources and everything like that. It just kind of brings it down home when you hear about like kind of the Amazon like rainforest getting cut down and stuff, and how it's we just think, oh, just don't do that. Well, it's not as like simple as that per se. But anyways, definitely I really recommend that. This was a big surprise read for me. And then sort of a couple books here from the 1500s, actually 30 Years' War is 1600s, but we'll start with that one. So I finally read one of my Folio Society books right here, The 30 Years' War by C.B. Wedgwood. And obviously this is just like a really chunky book on the 30 Years' War. For those who don't know, it was sort of a religious war in the early 17th century. I think, if I remember off the top of my head, it was 1618 to 1648. But it is one of those kind of old style histories in which there's not a whole lot of social history going on. It is a very political kind of military narrative. But one of the things I did like about the book is the author, since it's from about 100 years ago, she's not against like putting like judgment calls on people, basically saying, yeah, they just like weren't up to the challenge, or yeah, he was kind of like a bad person, that's why he made like those decisions and that kind of stuff. But it doesn't actually detract from the book, if that makes sense. It reads very well, and I've known a little bit about the 30 Years' War just from like other kind of stuff, but I had read some stuff on like Wallenstein and whatnot, but it was definitely a pleasure to actually like flesh out a lot of kind of the stuff I had known about and connecting like all the dots together as well. And then actually, before we go on to the last one, if you've been enjoying the video, you can like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff too. But the best way to support the channel is actually checking out my Etsy shop, where I'm putting up new listings and things. Even just liking and favoriting different items in the shop helps a ton. And I have noticed, obviously, since I started doing videos again, I know a lot of you guys have been doing that, so I definitely appreciate it. It helps the Etsy algorithm a ton. And then let's just go on to the last one here. We got Empires of the Sea, The Final Battle for the Mediterranean, 1528 to 1580. And this is by Roger Crowley. I read one of his other books, which was The Accursed Tower, which is set during the Crusades. This one, however, is about the siege of Rhodes and Malta and the Battle of Lepanto. So if you like the Order of St. John or the Knights Hospitaller, like if you get tired of always hearing about like Templars and stuff, this book is kind of all about like one of the other military orders there. But this is about the Ottoman Empire's expansion in the 1500s, and how a couple of these little holdouts on these islands were trying to like stem the tide of like the Ottoman advance. You got a couple big figures like Suleiman the Magnificent. I think it was King Philip of the Habsburg Empire. Anyways, kind of going at it. So you got like kind of the diplomacy behind the scenes, but you have a lot of kind of the nitty gritty kind of stuff going on with like some of the sieges. And I felt like I learned a lot, because it's kind of like that tail end of the medieval era, because we're kind of getting like the gunpowder. For example, like in the siege of The Siege of Rhodes, you have like kind of the state-of-the-art defenses here that are actually good against like artillery and whatnot. And then like the Siege of Malta, not so much. It's kind of like in the old style, just like not good against like gunpowder and whatnot. So anyways, I learned a lot from that one, so I definitely encourage others to read that one as well if that's an era you're interested in. So there you have it. There's a couple books I really enjoyed that I probably wouldn't have picked up otherwise if it wasn't for Historathon. But let me know down below if you're going to be joining in this year in Historathon 2024 and what your latest history read has been, or a history book that you're planning on picking up in the near future. And always remember, whether you're reading history or not, read victoriously.